Okay, it started. So I'm coming back to the budget. I have here the budget that we built together last week. So I'm just gonna create a new sheet in the Google Sheet where I'm going to build the implementation chart. I hope that you can see well enough on the projected screen. In a first instance, I'm going to copy the investment components. Let's see, probably like this. And I'm going to paste them in this new sheet. So on the columns, we are going to write the number of the month. And we're just going to say M12, not use so much space. Should probably reduce the dimensions of the column so we would have a chance of seeing the chart on the screen. Okay, so now I have 24 months for implementation. I'm going to calculate the total at the end, you will see. Now, I'm going to bring the values from the budget because I want to have values in the implementation chart. I believe this would be the simplest way. I'm bringing with formulas the values in at the beginning on the first month, and then I'm just going to move them with the cut function there where I need them. So let's say that in the first month we would be buying the land. Then normally we could plan to start the elaboration of the technical project. And I was saying that it might take maybe 4 months, maybe more, to elaborate the project. So I'm planning to start it in the first month, but I'm dividing the value by 4. And I plan to elaborate the project during these first 4 months. And of course, the 12,000, I divided them equally on those 4 months. It's not a requirement, but it's the easiest way to do it, and it is usually acceptable in practice. It's okay to do it so. Now, I imagine that if we finish the technical project here in month 4, we could submit the documentation for obtaining the construction permit. And the law says that the authorities would have 30 days to release the permit, of course, if everything is okay. So I would imagine the month number 5 not happening much, just waiting for the construction permit. Okay, so if we plan to have the construction permit by the end of month 5, we can plan to start the construction of the production hall maybe from month 6. Now, again, I was saying before, if indeed we plan to obtain non-reimbursable funds, somewhere around this time, we should apply with financing demand to some sort of agency that grants financial subsidies. And if we were to do so, it would probably take, the evaluation process would probably take, as I was saying, at least 6 months. In most of the cases, it takes somewhere between 6 months and a year. So I'm not going to put that here. because the chart would be maybe too long. Let's imagine that we are able to start the construction of the production hall in month number 6. I will come back to the subject when we talk about financial subsidies, and you will see the delays that would be brought by such programs. So let's say that we start the construction of the production hall here in month number 6. As I was telling you before, it depends. If it happens to be the beginning of the winter, you probably would be forced to delay it until spring. So there are many factors that would delay each phase. Let's say that it would take us 6 months. Of course, it could take less, but it could also take much more. So I'll just say 6. Now, the warehouse. Probably in most of the cases, you would start all the three buildings here at the same time, but let's leave a little delay. Let's say that we start the warehouse here just to make sure, because as I said, you would surely you would have more gaps than the ones that I left here. So this is why I want to prolong the implementation chart, because in practice, especially when we also use financial subsidies, 2 years is usually very close for such a project with constructions. So let's say also 6. So 6 months. So what I'm doing, I'm imagining that for each investment component, the payments are being made in equal chunks on a monthly basis. Of course, it will not be exactly so, but you would never be able to plan it exactly right in practice. So such a planning is acceptable. Let's say for the office building, maybe 4 months, 5. Now, of course, we can go to a much detailed decomposition. You would probably start with the heavy works. I mean, you would not want to start by building the concrete platform or the parking lot and then come with the bulldozers to dig for the foundation of the building, thus destroying the concrete platform and the parking lot. You'd probably come at the beginning with the heavy equipment, the digging equipment. You would build the production hall, the warehouse, the office building. You would make the utility connections, and then at the end you would build the concrete platform, the fence, the parking lot, and at the very end you would probably build the fence in its final form. So I will continue with the connections from this point. No, no, not the fence. Fence will be for later. The electricity. Okay, I made a mistake here. Okay, the electricity connection, then let's imagine here water and sewage and gas. Now, of course, they don't need to be in separate months. But as I said, I want to distribute the values on the entire period because in reality we would probably need the entire period and possibly even more than that. So once we finish with the connection works for the utilities, we can build the parking lot and the concrete platform, let's say here, and then the fence, month 21. Now, we would probably not want to buy and install the equipment before we have the electricity because we need to test it, and the suppliers usually need to see that we have the required conditions. Otherwise, they might not grant us the warranty. I mean, I'm going to imagine the equipment being bought and installed somewhere around here. In reality, in most cases, we were demanded to pay an advance. Of course, once we have signed the contract with the suppliers, we would pay about 50% in advance, and then it would take maybe 2, sometimes even 3 months for the suppliers to bring the equipment. We would pay the rest, and then they would come with their team to install the equipment. So I just put them here in month 22, but as I said, it would probably take 2, 3, or 4 months for the procurement, for the supplying and installment of the equipment. Now, the furniture, computers, I can put all these at the end. The text to the constructions inspectorate, there's one of 0.1% that we pay at the beginning of the construction works, and for us it would be month number 6. So here, the other one, we would pay half of it at the beginning of the construction works and the other half at the end. And the end of the construction works would be where? Here, month 21. The site monitoring, as we called it, I was not sure how to call it in English, needs to take place for the entire duration of the construction works. And from month 6 to 21, we have 16 months. So I'm going back to the budget, calculate it correctly. It's not 12, it's 16. And we imagined 400 euros a month until month 21. This should be right. So as far as I can see, I have everything. I went up to month 23. With a little more time, my suggestion is to go, if you have constructions, and hopefully you do, to go for 24 months. Let's check if we have everything. I'm going to calculate the totals and compare the total value to the value of the budget. And there is no difference. As you can see, I put everything in the implementation chart. Let's name it. Implementation chart. Make sure that you specify the currency. Okay. At the end, you should also mark the activities in color. Format, conditional formatting. No, that's not. This was what I wanted. So that's the implementation chart. Yes, you can make it in more detail. In practice, many times I do it like this. Of course, again, depending on the situation, depending on the demands of those that would make decisions based on my feasibility study, I might put in the implementation chart different other activities, such as the procurement procedures, and I might present each procedure with each step of the procedure, each payment, each reimbursement, and so on. But in most of the cases, I would say that by doing the implementation chart like this is perfect for a feasibility study. So do it the same way. You have access to my Google Sheet. You can, if you want to, of course, you can simply copy the sheet and you can change the budget to make your own, and you can do the same with the implementation chart. I never use even my work. I always start from a blank page, but whatever works best for you. If you would rather just start from my budget and change it, do it this way. It's your choice. So, are there any questions from your part concerning the budget and concerning the implementation chart? I will come back to it after speaking about the financing sources, because you will see the process of obtaining and using the financing sources imposes other waiting periods within the implementation chart. Were you able to follow me? Do you have any questions? Is everything clear?
Okay, until now.
Okay. Now, let's say that indeed we plan the investment budget. How did we do it? We started from our operating cycle. I mean, we planned our operating cycle, which is what we want to do each day in the future, our economic activity. And by analyzing the different activities, the different operations from within the operating cycle, of course, we realized that unfortunately, because it's not something that we want to, unfortunately, we need to consume resources to do those activities, those operations. Different types of resources, raw materials, electricity, heat, water, different services. Of course, we need personnel, so we need to pay wages. And among many, many other things, unfortunately, again, we also need a technical infrastructure. Of course, it depends again on the operating cycle, but we might need land, we might need different types of buildings with different areas, different types of equipment with different capacity, different technical specs. So, from the planning of the operating cycle, we got to a list of resources required again to put the operating cycle into practice. And from that list, we took out the resources that would represent the infrastructure of the business. Because, yes, of course, we might also need, as I said, raw materials or electricity, but we will buy them or we will supply them in any case as we go. But there is an infrastructure that we need from the beginning, like the land, the buildings, the equipment. And this infrastructure or the components of this infrastructure have to make the object of an initial investment. So this is how we made the list. We established their technical specs. Hopefully you have already searched for prices, identified suppliers, demanded for price offers, and now based on the price offers we can finalize the budget. So get to know the value of this initial investment in this required infrastructure. Again, required by the operating cycle that we have planned. Now, just now, we plan the implementation of the investment. And again, I'm imagining that most of you will do the same as I did. You will plan it over a 2-year period. But now there's another problem. Let's say that we would decide to implement the investment. We would require capital to finance the investment. In my case, I'm getting to a value of almost 400,000 euros. Where do I get it from? I need capital. I need financing sources. And this is what we are going to talk about today. There could be many types of financing sources, but I would say that the first one that we should take into consideration would be the equity. We need to have, normally, we also need to have some equity, some shared capital in principle, so our own financing sources. If we were the shareholders of this startup, hopefully we would bring in the company, we would bring some shared capital. And this capital would represent the initial financing source for our future investment. What would we be expecting in return when we bring the capital within the company? Please realize the fact that the persons of the shareholders, let's say us, are different from the person represented by the company, because the company would be a legal entity, a different person, as I was saying, in the eyes of the law. So with us, the shareholders bringing capital within the company, we would not be donating the capital to the company. We would leave the capital at the disposal of the company for a certain time. It is true that normally in the contract of the shareholders, when creating the company, when creating the company, there's no deadline for the company to return the capital. It's unspecified, and usually you understand that the capital will remain in the company indefinitely, and in any case for a long time. But that does not mean that the shareholder has donated the capital to the company. The shareholder has the right, the capital is his, and he or she, they have the right to demand for the capital back normally at any time. It's theirs. So by seeing things in this manner, from this point of view, we can understand that the capital stays at the disposal of the company for a limited time. The shareholders are the owners of the capital, and they grant some sort of a financing service to the company, again, for a limited time. Their objectives from the financial point of view, one, to at least at some point get their capital back. Again, it's not a donation. Two, they want to be paid for this service. They are financing the company by leaving at its disposal the capital for this period for which the capital stays in the hands of the company. The shareholders expect to be paid for the service, the financing service, and the payment is not done under the form of interests. It's done under the form of dividends. So the basic cost from the point of view of the company, the basic cost of this type of financing, of this type of service, because it's true that we usually say the cost of capital, but in reality it's the cost of a service. It's not like the company pays for the capital. No, at some point the company will pay back the capital. The company pays for the service of what? Of leaving the capital for a certain time at its disposal. So for the company, the cost of this financing service granted by the shareholders is the dividends that it is expected to pay each year. Again, from their point of view, the shareholders expect to get their capital back at some point, but until then, each year to be paid dividends for their service. I wanted to get into this subject because you will see later on when we do the feasibility analysis, we will need to take into consideration the cost of the capital. So in this chapter, when you will specify the amount of equity at the disposal of the company, I also want you to specify the cost associated to this capital in terms of dividends. Again, because we will need it later on. And I will come back to the shareholders in a moment because I want to be able to compare their financing service to something. And I'm going for this reason to the bank loans because there, I believe, things are more obvious. So let's step forward. Let's say that yes, we have whatever 50,000, 100,000 euros in equity, but it's not enough, and we also need a bank loan. Between us, for startups, bank loans for investments are not often available. Banks are not usually in a hurry to finance investments for startups, and for good reason. Of course, banks don't grant subsidies. They are in the business of giving loans. But of course, another important part of this process is to be able to recover the loan, to recover their capital. And it would probably be easy to grant the loans, but if they were to grant the loans with no previous analysis, they would probably have many clients that would not pay back, and for sure they would not pay back on time. I wouldn't be able to estimate what the default ratio would be. The default ratio for the loans would be the percentage of loans granted by banks and not being paid back, on time or at all. Usually the default ratio for on the market of the companies for bank loans is probably somewhere lower than 10%, maybe 6, maybe 5, maybe 7%. The highest default ratio that I can remember in Romania, and I'm sure that it's the higher that we have had at least during the last 20 years, was in 2011, in the first quarter of 2011. So during the economic crisis, if I remember correctly, and I think I do, we got to about 22%. So from all the bank loans granted at that time in Romania to companies, about 22% were having problems, not being paid back on time or not being paid back at all. So 22%. Before the crisis, it was more like 3, 4, 5%. So again, I don't know what the default ratio would be without an analysis. But my point is that if the banks would simply grant the loan to all companies demanding for one, uh, I can only imagine that the default ratio would go for sure higher than 50%, maybe 60, maybe 70. It's impossible to know because no bank does so. Uh, so the bank wants to grant the loan, but at the same time, it wants to make sure that it will get it back. The reality is that no matter what it does, it would never be able to know for sure that it gets the money back. No one can foresee the future, but the analysis that they do, at its core, a financial statement analysis, should at least be able to reduce the risk. So if without analysis the risk would be of maybe 70%, that means maybe in 70% of the cases the company would not pay back on time. With the analysis, it usually, as I said, goes down to maybe somewhere under 10%. Now, this means what? That maybe from 100 companies that are granted loans, maybe 90 of them always pay on time. The other 10 have delays, registered delays, and other types of difficulties would appear, and we will talk about them in a moment. The bank, of course, tries to reduce the default ratio, but it understands, statistically speaking, that it's always going to be there. There are always going to be companies not being able to pay. No one can control that. But in this effort to reduce the risks, of course, the banks would understand that the startups are the most, in principle, the riskiest companies in existence. And we have talked about it, I believe, in our first meeting. Uh, all over the world, about 50% of the companies, of the startups, uh, finish their activity, close their activity, their operating activity in 3 years. And in 5 years, 75 to 80, maybe 85% of them close their activity. So the vast majority of startups don't make it, which means that, of course, granting a loan, and especially a large loan to a startup, would almost certainly guarantee that the startup would not be able to pay back, which is why the banks usually, almost all the time, avoid granting loans to startups. Uh, when they do make exceptions in Romania, in particular, they would make exceptions if the startup would also have a financing through European subsidies. And this will be our case, as you will see. So for this reason, we can, and I want you to also plan bank loans. And I also want you to take into consideration lease contracts. Uh, just because I want to have the practice of simulating them and later on registering them within the forecasted accounting statements. So, for the bank loan, uh, let's say that we do go to the bank and we ask for a loan. from the first second the analysis starts, because the bank does not only what they would call a quantitative analysis, but also a qualitative one. And the bank officer should start it, as I said, from the beginning, from our first meeting. Uh, it's one thing if we go to the bank and from the beginning we just ask, how much can you give us? That's not what they would want to hear, because that would tell them that we don't really know how much we need. Uh, that would not serve us well in the qualitative analysis. We would not get a large score by starting in this manner. What they would rather see is that we know our operating cycle, we have the budget, uh, we know the capital that is already available to us, and we know that we need, in addition, this, whatever it would be, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 euros. So let's say that indeed this is the discussion that we are having, and we need maybe 200,000 euros to finance the last part of the investment, the part that is not yet covered from the existing financing sources. Now, the bank officer would need to establish with us what they would call the objective of the loan. The object of the loan. What it is that we are trying to finance through the loan. Because the bank probably has tens of different types of loans for companies with different possible objects to finance. So when we show the officer that we want to buy land, that we want to build a warehouse, a production hall, buy equipment, he or she should be able to identify the bank product that would be compatible to what we are trying to do. And they usually have rules for each bank loan, and there in the probably in a Word document, they will be able to show us the maximum value of the loan, the minimum value of the loan. It would probably also get to our own contribution, because even though the bank wants to grant loans, as I was saying, it also needs to make sure that it will get the money back. Well, at least try, because sure, it can never be sure. So in this process, and for this reason, the banks usually want to see the company that it has its own participation to the financing of the investment. It's not obviously that the bank does not have the capital to finance the entire investment. It's that if the company also finances a part of the investment, and when I say the company, I imagine that in this case, in the end, it would do so through the equity. So in the end, if the shareholders also finance through the equity a part of the investment, at least two things happen, maybe three. Uh, One, this is a good way to show the bank that you really trust the investment. I mean, you invest your own money. If you would not invest your own money, I guess it should be also, it should put a great question mark for the bank. The shareholders don't want to invest their own money, but they demand the bank to come up with the financing sources. So one, you show the bank that you trust the investment, which is important. Two, if the shareholders finance a part of the investment, they would be involved in a more personal way, because they would be risking, of course, their own equity. And maybe in the end, if things would not go well and the bank would get in the position of, well, feeling forced to liquidate the assets of the company to get its money back, the bank loan back, if the assets of the company would only be financed through loans, it would probably be hard to get the entire capital back just by liquidating the assets of the company. But if part of the assets is being financed through equity, then by also liquidating that part, it would more probably be enough to pay back the loan. So, again, this would be another aspect, the contribution required from the part of the company and in the end from the shareholders. Then the duration of the loan would also be an important parameter. For private persons, usually the duration of the loans are longer, up to 30, 40, 35, even up to 40 years. That's not the way it works for companies. Usually, long-term bank loans are limited to about 5 years. There are banks that grant loans for 7 years, and in exceptional cases, maybe 10 years. But in most of the cases, it's 5 years. Uh, if the bank grants us a loan of whatever it may be, 100,000 euros for 5 years, of course, that doesn't mean that we are going to pay back the 100,000 after 5 years, after 60 months. No, it means that we would probably be paying a certain amount, paying it back from month to month. Each month we pay back something. And that part that we would be paying back each month, that part is called principal or principal payment. So the payment that returns the capital to the bank, it's called principal payment. At the same time, each month we should be paying for the cost of the financing service, because here as well the bank, as the shareholders, the bank too grants the company a financing service. And for each month during which the capital of the bank stays at the disposal of the company should pay for this service under the form of interest. It's true also under the form of bank fees. Usually they are being seen as another type of cost. But in the end, of course, we also pay fees with the interest. Uh, in most of the cases, the payments are being made on a monthly basis. Sometimes there are exceptions, and usually the exceptions are being negotiated based on the way the company does its own cash collections. Companies that don't really collect cash each month for who knows what reason, usually if there is seasonality in its activity, may be able to negotiate with the bank for not paying on a monthly basis. But these are really exceptions. The rule is that we pay each month a part of the value of the loan, and with that fees and interests. Apart from that, and when you do sign the bank loan with the bank, you will for sure simulate a reimbursement chart, and the reimbursement chart would become an appendix to the loan contract, and we will simulate a reimbursement chart in a moment. But among other things, you would probably debate and negotiate with the bank the possible mortgages, because of course the bank does the analysis. It hopes that the company would be able to pay back, but it understands that there is always the risk the risk of the company defaulting. And for such situation, the bank, of course, wants to have the possibility to liquidate something to get the money back. And usually it will want buildings, land, buildings, or similar assets. Similar in by that I mean assets that don't easily lose value over a smaller a small period of time. And of course, it's important also to be assets that have a liquid market that could be easily sold again if necessary. For the interest rate, it usually is negotiable. Usually the rules the rules of the bank start from a base rate. It's usually the interest rate within for loans within the bank sector between banks, I mean, and the bank adds a certain margin to that base rate, the margin being usually dependent of the risk perceived by the bank in the relationship with the company. Okay, so having said that, I suggest we try to simulate a reimbursement chart. Before doing so, however, maybe we should try to imagine a structure of the financing sources for our budget. Are you there?
Yes.
I ask because I can't see anyone,
Yes.
and I want to make sure that I'm not doing the reimbursement chart by myself. I want to show you how it's done. Of course, I can give you many examples, but I thought I would do these things throughout the semester in front of you, starting from blank pages, so you can learn how to do it. Of course, maybe some of you already know, but I imagine that some don't. And as you can see, I also want to leave you the charts, and you can use them for your own simulations. Let's just say loan, bank loan. But I'm going to create this page with the financing sources. Where we need to start from the value of the investment, what we need to finance. So, well, let's say value. And maybe percentages. So, the value of the investment comes from the budget. And I wanted you to use as financing sources, we will continue to talk about them, equity, or within the definition of equity, shared capital, bank loans, lease contracts, leasing, and non-reimbursable funds or subsidies, financial subsidies for investments, of course. Because there are also subsidies for operating charges or for the sales. There are different types of financial subsidies. So I'm going to come back to these values, but for the time being, let's say that the bank loan one would be of 100,000 euros. And here I'm going to create the reimbursement chart. On column A and B, I will establish the main parameters of the loan. Let's start with the value. Can you see anything like this? Do I need to enlarge the image, the view?
Oh, it's okay.
So the value, and I'm taking the value from the previous sheet, from here. Now, I need the period, let's say credit period, maybe. So this is the entire period of the contract, which, as I said, in most cases would be 5 years. I'm coloring the cell in green, so you can play with it with simulations, but I would suggest we all use 5 years. It's the most common one, and you will see that we will also do the financial forecastings for 5 years. So years, which means, which means 60 months, 12 times, 5. Now, another parameter would be the grace period, which is the period, possibly, because in most cases there isn't any, but in theory, it would be the period at the beginning of the credit period, so after signing the loan contract, a period during which the company would not be making principal payments. You will see in a moment. Let's see 3 months for the time being. We will play with it a little bit. This means that the reimbursement period correct no, would be the difference between the two, the entire loan period less the grace period. Now we need the interest rate. Let's simply say 12% per year. Which would mean 12 divided by 12 months, 1% per month. Administration fee which in many cases is of about 0.1% a month. And this is it for the parameters. I can calculate here the principal payments. As the value of the loan over the reimbursement period. Now I'm going to build a chart. Let's say month. 1 up to 60. So initial balance at the beginning of the month, principal payments, interest payments, administration fees, debt service, and balance, or final balance and balance at the end of the month. So the reimbursement chart would look like this, table basically, that would establish the payments that we would be doing each month. We are going to fill it in a moment. Okay. So at the beginning of the first month, the value of the loan available to us is of, as we have programmed it here, 100,000 euros. By the end of the month, we would pay this. At the beginning, I will imagine that there is no grace period. Now, that means that at the end of the month, we are left with the difference between the two, 100,000 minus what we pay back to the bank. We are left with, there you go, 98,000 something. Of course, the value at the end of 1 month would be the value at the beginning of the following month, and I'm going to keep this formula, use this formula for the entire chart. Always the value at the end of the month would be the value at the beginning of the month less the principal payments. The principal payments, if they were equal of this value, would bring us at the end of returning the entire loan. As you can see, the value at the end, remaining at the end of month 60 would be 0. Now, for the first month, the entire value of 100,000 euros capital is being left at our disposal. So we pay the interest for the entire value. I see the interest as, in a way, as you would see the rent for a space. This capital of 100,000 is available to the company, and for this service of being able to use the capital to finance whatever it finances, the company pays the interest as a price. So we calculate the interest by multiplying the interest rate, monthly interest rate, by the value of the loan available to us. Like this. And we can apply the formula for the entire period. For the administration fees, it's the same. The rate of the administration fee multiplied by the value of the loan available to us during the month for which we are doing the calculation. The debt service is what we pay to the company in terms of principal and interest, not fees. So just principal and interest. Now, or the grace period. We might negotiate it with the bank. the bank grants us the loan when? Probably sometime at the beginning of the implementation period, the implementation of our investment. It might be here or, in any case, as I said, at some point close to the beginning of our implementation chart. But uh, according at least to this chart, it will take us 2 years to finalize the investment, and only then will we be able to start the operating activity and hopefully generate cash inflows so that we would be able to pay to the bank. We could try to negotiate with the bank to not pay any principal during this period until we start our operating activity and we start generating cash. So if we would negotiate a 24-month grace period, it would look like this. And I'm going to try to create a formula. So as long as the number of the month is inferior or equal at the most to the grace period, not pay anything. Whenever this condition is not met anymore, once we go past that grace period, we pay whatever we have calculated here. So as you can see, now we don't make any principal payments during the first 24 months of the credit period, but of course we pay more afterwards during the 3 years remaining. Yes, so in the end we still pay it all. Of course, the interest pay would be larger in value. We pay more during this initial period when we don't pay back the principal. And you can, of course, simulate if the grace period would be of 3 months. As you can see now, the chart takes it into consideration and we start paying the principal from month number 4. So I'm leaving you access to the chart. Let's call it reimbursement chart. And my suggestion is that you just link the sheet to your own table of financing sources and simulate your own bank loan when you get there. Now, I said that I would like you to also have a financial leasing contract. Hopefully you will find something to finance through a leasing contract. In my case, maybe the forklift. Maybe the forklift would be fit for this. So coming back to the table with the financing sources, I will put the 18,000 here. And I will create a similar chart, reimbursement chart for the leasing contract. In a first step, I will copy this chart. I will leave it for 5 years. There would probably be no grace period in this case. Let's make the interest higher, maybe 15% with no administration fee. What usually changes here is the way we pay the principal. And this is what I want to show you, but first I want to bring the correct value to it. Now, as you can see, for the reimbursement chart for the bank loan, the principal payments are equal from one month to the other. Of course, the value of the interest being paid gets lower and lower as the value of the available loan becomes lower and lower. So this means that the debt service is decreasing from one month to the other, as it constitutes the sum between the principal payment and the interest payment, right? Now, for a company that, at least for a stronger company, that might be easy to pay. But when it comes to physical persons, usually most of us, have monthly income under the form of wages, equal wages, usually equal from one month to the other. So it would be difficult to pay larger amounts at the beginning of the credit period. As you can see, it goes from, in my case, in this case, from 2,666 euros to what? 1,683 euros. So it would probably be much more difficult for a physical person to pay at the beginning, which is why there are other types of charts. There is, in particular, another type of reimbursement chart that tries to make the debt service equal from one month to the other. But how would you be able to make it equal if the interest is being calculated by applying the interest rate always to the value available throughout the month? Because, of course, as you can see, the value of the available loan decreases as you pay from one month to the other. And the only possibility is to increase the principal payment from one month to the other as the interest decreases. So this is what happens usually for the reimbursement charts for the leasing contracts, even for the companies. So to calculate the principal paid each month, because it will be different from month to month, as I was saying, it should be increasing to compensate for the decrease of the interest. To calculate it, we will use the principal payment function. And the arguments for the principal payment function are the value of the loan, the interest rate, the number of periods, and the period for which we are doing the calculation. And right now I can't remember the order of the arguments. Let me look it up. Over the internet. Rate, period, number of periods, value. Okay. So it was rate, period, number of periods, and value. Okay. Interest rate, number of periods, current period, and value. And I should put the negative sign at the beginning. No, that's not right. First period, then number of periods. So first it's the current period, then the number of periods. 60. Now it should work. and it does. I'm locking the required cells, the references I mean, and we should be good. Now, as you can see, even though the interest, the total value of the interest decreases from 1 month to the other, the value of the principal payment increases by the same amount, and in this manner, the value of the debt service supported paid each month is the same. You can see it here. Okay, so that's it, the reimbursement chart for the leasing contract. Please use both of these types of resources. And within the feasibility study, please make sure that you specify the conditions, the value, as I did here, the period, maybe a grace period if you plan for one, guarantees, in particular, of course, the fees and the interest rate, the cost of the capital in this case. Now, I said I would be coming back to the equity. I want to see that you are able to establish the cost of the equity in a logical manner. Let's say that you have an investment financed maybe 25% from bank loans, 25% from equity, shared capital. In your opinion, who takes greater risk, the bank or the shareholder? Both of them finance the company by maybe 100,000 euros. So the bank grants a loan of 100,000 euros. The shareholders bring 100,000 euros in shared capital. Who takes greater risk, the shareholders or the bank? What do you think? Are you there?
Yes, we are. I think that the shareholders.
I think you're right. For sure, the shareholders. Because think about it. The bank, as we were saying, signs a contract with a company. Of course, the shareholders also have a contract with the company. But in the case of the bank, as I was saying, the reimbursement chart becomes an appendix to the contract. So from the beginning, the bank makes the company sign and accept these conditions. The company will pay this, whatever we have planned here in the reimbursement chart, will pay these sums of cash, of money to the bank each month according to the reimbursement chart, no matter the conditions. If the company does well, fine. If it doesn't do that well, it has to pay anyway. Okay, so the bank does not want to take the risks coming from the environment of the company. The company needs to pay, even if it has trouble collecting the cash from its own customers, even if it doesn't have enough sales. It's the problem of the company, not the bank's problem. And if by some chance the company would not be able to pay, the contract also specifies probably some sort of a mortgage. And if the company doesn't pay, the bank comes, liquidates the mortgage, the object of the mortgage, and gets its money back. And if even that is not enough, the bank would probably liquidate the other assets of the company to get its money back. And if at the end there would be something left for the shareholders, fine. If not, it's not the problem of the bank. And you can look it up over the internet. You will find many reports for liquidations. You will see that usually when liquidating the assets of the company, usually about half of it would return under the form of cash, which means that maybe it would be enough to pay back the debt, but it almost never is enough to pay anything back from the equity. So the shareholders risk everything. By everything, I mean, of course, the value of the equity when we are talking about a limited company. The responsibility of the shareholders is really, we say that it is limited to the value of their shared capital, meaning by that that's what they are risking, in the sense that in a situation where the company defaults, if the bank, the leasing company, the raw material suppliers, the different creditors, they try to get their money back from the company, they might liquidate the assets, and in doing so they would also liquidate the assets that are being financed through equity. So the shareholders risk losing their entire equity, but they would not be forced if, even by liquidating the assets of the company, the creditors are not being able to recover their entire capital. The shareholders, it's not up to them to pay the difference. This is what it means, the fact that they only risk their shared capital. However, in many cases, when a company grants a bank loan, it tries to bring the shareholders on an even more personal level in this. It usually makes the shareholder sign as a person the guarantees for the bank, in that if the company would not be able to pay, and if the assets of the company would not be enough to recover the loan, the shareholder would guarantee the paying back of the loan with its own assets. So with all these things, I hope that you can see that for sure the risks taken by the shareholders are much higher. The shareholders don't have any mortgages, any guarantees of getting their money back. They don't even have a specified moment of getting their money back. And for the return that they are expecting under the form of dividends, there also they don't have any guarantees. The bank expects the interests and the fees according to the reimbursement chart. As I said, no matter if the company is doing well or not, but the shareholders only get dividends if the company generates profits, if it generates enough profits. So again, as we have said at the beginning, the shareholders should have as objective to, at some point, get their capital back, and during the period throughout which they are leaving the capital in the hands of the company, they would be expecting dividends. So these are two important financial objectives: getting their capital back and getting the dividends. Both of these objectives are under a lot of risk. For sure, a level of risk that is much higher than the one taken by the bank or the leasing company, which is why it would be expected for the cost of the equity, so the cost demanded by the shareholders under the form of dividends, it would be expected for this cost to be higher than the financing cost demanded by the bank. So higher than the interest rate for the bank loan or for the financial leasing contract. So if the interest rate for the bank loan is 12%, I want to see that the dividends that the shareholders would expect in your feasibility studies would be higher as a percentage than 12%. I don't know how much higher, whether it would be 15%, 20%, or more. Of course, the difference should be enough to cover the differences in risks. So again, here I want to see that you understand this concept and you are able to explain it. Okay, having said that, I want to get to what I would say should be the most interesting type of financing sources, the subsidies for investments. But before I get into the subject, I want to see whether you had any contact with not only European funds, but mostly European funds for investments. Have you ever been involved in European projects of any type? Anyone? So I should understand that you never had any contact with European funds, I guess, or that you are not there anymore. And I'm
No
We are
contact
here.
with European funds.
I think everybody knows what European funds are, but yeah, we didn't have contact. We didn't work with them.
okay. No, you might have had, I imagined, either as entrepreneurs, maybe applying yourselves to get European funds, or maybe the companies or the institutions that you work with might have been financed through European funds, or who knows. Me myself, I have worked with European funds for more than 20 years, either by preparing projects, including feasibility study, of course, and I've done, I don't even know for sure, more than 200 projects. But I also had many times the opportunity to work on the other side, to work with institutions that manage European funds. Even our university, and I think I told you this in our first meeting. Even our university uh, acts and has been doing so for the last 10 or 11 years as a fund administrator, which means that on several occasions we were granted funds not to use for ourselves, but to grant them again to usually startups for investments. So we have financed up until now somewhere around 300 startups, again, during the last about 10 or 11 years. Okay. So as you said, of course, you know about European funds. At the level of the European Union, of course, there are several programs, but within each country, the funds are being injected in the economy through national programs. So the national programs should be of more interest to us. Again, national programs that channel European funds. And right now, the most important national program with European funds for companies is what we call the regional program. And this is the time where probably I should access the site of ADR West, the regional development agency from the Western region. Let me see. So I'm just going to type ADR West. And I will put the link to their site, of course, on our platform. So again, ADR West manages the regional program at the level of the western region of Romania, which means the department Timiș, Arad, Karaș-Severin, and Hunedoara. And from their page, if you scroll down a bit, you will find, let's just call them active programs and programs that are in public consultation. Now, what it means, and hopefully I will be able to explain it to you in a simple manner. The regional program has many components. Of course, the main objective is to support the development of the entire region. But of course, the region has many needs, many requirements. You might argue that, of course, we need to develop our startups, but we also need to help developing the existing companies. At the same time, you can argue that we need to make investments in hospitals because, of course, the health of the population from the region is an important asset for the later economic development as well. You can always argue that we need to develop more the infrastructure of utilities. You can argue that we need to make more roads, more highways, or modernize the existing ones. You can argue that we need to invest in school and universities because education, of course, is an important factor for the future development, and so on. So the point is that the development has many, many components, which is why this regional program tries to target different fields. So it has different objectives, and you really can see them as sub programs. I think this is the easiest way to see them as programs within this regional program. For instance, let me find something that could be more interesting and clear. This is a program for, as you can see here, for schools and high schools. It's active right now, so basically a school or a high school from the Western region could apply with a project. You can access the program, you can see what types of investments are eligible, what would be the maximum amount of money or funds that they could get, and so on. Here you can see that they have a program for modernizing the public buildings from the point of view of energy consumption. I have worked as a project evaluator with Adarevest a few years ago, and I evaluated projects also in this field for public buildings. Usually the funds here within this program, the applicants, as we call them, can use the funds to modernize the buildings, usually by replacing the windows, the doors with materials that would be more energy efficient, insulate the walls, change the electrical systems, buy and install maybe solar panels and other similar equipment for producing green energy. Then, let's see, roads. As you can imagine, these funds are focused on developing the road infrastructure. You have here a program for the energetic efficiency of buildings, residential buildings, and you probably have seen a lot of blocks of flats in Timișoara and in many cities and towns from the Western region, modernized, in particular insulated through this program. I mean, probably many of them, of those that you can see being modernized, the works are being financed, at least in part, through this program. But this is not what interests us. We are interested in the funds for companies. No program for companies is open now, but there are some that they will open in a few weeks or months. You will find them here. They are in the period of public consultation. And There is a program for the small and medium-sized companies for innovation. I'm not sure that this would be the right program for us. You can check it out. Maybe for some of you, it could be appropriate. There is another one for the digitalization of the small and medium-sized companies. Within this program, you will see that you will be able to use the funds to make investments in the IT and C field. So buying hardware, buying software, using AI in your activity, things like that. Again, as far as I know, as far as I know about your proposed investments, each of you has maybe some computer software, as I do in my budget, but it goes to how much? I have 3,000 euros worth of computers and 600 euros in software. Just for this, I would not apply within this program. The effort would be too great for only 3,600 euros. But this program maybe this would be more appropriate. If you click on it, you will see that they grant up to 75,000 euros to start up. It's not a lot. Of course, if we indeed have an investment of 200,000 or more, in my case, almost 400,000, 75,000 is not that much, but at least it's something. So you can use these funds to finance in part the investment. Of course, the rest of it we can imagine financing it from equity and, as I said, bank loans and leasing contracts. Now, mind you, each program should have and will have what we call an applicant's guide, a guide for the applicant. The first thing that you should do is to download the guide. And if you do, you will see that you will find in it all the details, all the answers to the following questions. Who can apply or who can obtain subsidies within the program? Because, of course, as you can see, with this being a program for startups, public institutions will not be eligible. Companies that are older will not be eligible. Usually, only companies from a specific area would be eligible for financing. Then you will see that companies that have public debt also are not eligible. Companies that had fiscal issues or different types of legal issues during the past 3 years would not be eligible. So my point is that you will find a list of criteria of eligibility for the applicants. Then you will find information about they call them expenditures or charges that are eligible. I'm hesitant in using the word charge or expenditure because these aren't really charges. We are talking about investments, and from our point of view, the economic point of view, and in particular the accounting point of view, and it's the accounting that defines the charge or the expenditure. The charges are quite the opposite of investments. But again, usually we call them in the field of European funds, we call the investment components expenditures, although it's not correct from the accounting point of view. So you can find the list of eligible expenditures, so you can see what you can use the capital for. You will see in this case that, look, you cannot buy land, you cannot use it to buy land. you mostly should be using it, the funding, I mean, to buy equipment. Yes, you can use up to 10% of it to build something, but again, it's 10% of 75,000. So it's 7,500. It's really nothing. So really, you can use the program to finance equipment or maybe software. The others, certifications, these are details. So if you were to imagine applying on this program, use the funding to buy the equipment and maybe some software, and that's it. You can see this from the beginning, the minimum and maximum value of the financing. Yes, there also is a minimum value of the financing, and this is important because sometimes you apply with a budget of who knows. Of course, in this case, it's not a lot, 75,000. There are other programs that grant up to who knows, 4 million euros, some even more. So imagine a program that grants, let's say, 200,000, and I will show you others in a moment, but no less than maybe 50,000. And you apply with a budget of 100,000 euros. Well, you ask for 100,000 euros in subsidies. But during the evaluation process, the evaluators, and as I said, I have been in this position in the past, the evaluators cut out a part of your investment components from the budget, from the eligible list, for different reasons. In quite a few projects, I was in the position of moving part of the investment components from the eligible list as proposed by the applicants in the non-eligible list. Again, for different reasons. And if the project proposed maybe 100,000 euros, demanded for 100,000 euros in subsidies, but after the corrections, the value remaining got to maybe 45,000, and the minimum limit was of 50,000, automatically the project became ineligible for financing. So the project could be rejected if even the minimum value of the subsidy being demanded is not met. Okay, you can see from the beginning here that you also have need to have a contribution. So let's say that indeed we propose a budget of 70,000. That does not mean that they will give us 70,000. They want us to cover 10%, 7,000, and they would give us maybe the other 63,000. But again, no more than 75 being the limit. But in all cases, you need to have a contribution to what we would establish as the eligible expenses or the eligible investment. At least 10% the contribution of the company. Okay, so usually the applicant's guide has maybe 60 or 70 pages. You will find within it information about the application process. And maybe what I should specify is that you can just simply go to the site of Aderevest here and just apply. And yes, you will be applying with the project online. They have a platform for applying, but you just can go anytime you want to and apply for subsidies. They have calls for proposals, apeluri de proiecte. So really imagine them as windows in time, windows of maybe a month or two in most cases, during which you can submit a project. And they always announce it some months in advance. And you might know that in April they will open the call for proposals for this program for startups. This means that right now, as we speak, probably many companies are preparing their projects, and in April, when they will open the call, the applicants would upload their projects within the platform of Aderevest. Then the call for proposal closes, maybe, I'm not sure, maybe somewhere at the end of May, and they, Aderevest, will continue with the evaluation of the projects. Depending on, of course, the number of the projects, it will probably take maybe somewhere around 6 months to finish the evaluation of the projects. Within this process, the evaluators will analyze the eligibility of the project, meaning the eligibility of the applicant, the eligibility of the expenses, whether all the documents required are there. And then for the eligible projects, they will pass to what they will call the technical and financial evaluation. Within this part of the evaluation process, they will score, they will have several criteria, and you have access to these criteria as an appendix to the applicant's guide. They will pass through all those criteria and score the project. And I don't know, at the end, let's say that they end up with 200 projects, but they only have funds for 150 or 100 projects. So they will sort the list based on their score, and they will finance the projects with the highest scores within the limit of the financing sources available within the call for project proposals. They will then invite the applicants that would have been selected. They will invite them to sign the contracts. On this occasion, the applicants would be required to bring additional documents, and you will find those as well in the applicant's guide. Again, there's a period of analyzing the documents to make sure that everything is in order. And then in the end, you will sign the subsidy contract. So from the time of applying to the moment of signing the contract, it's possible that an entire year might pass. So now I can come back to my implementation chart. You can understand that for such reasons, when you also use non-reimbursable subsidies, this period might be longer and empty. So there's nothing that you would pay. Maybe here you prepare the feasibility study, you apply, and you wait. Well, you wait and possibly you answer different questions that the agency might have. But again, a year might pass, you sign the contract, and through the contract, on one hand, you take the obligation of course, implementing the project, such as you have prepared it, planned it within the feasibility study. On its side, the agency would have the obligation of course, paying the funds, making the funds available to the applicant. From after signing the contract, of course, the applicant would become what they would call a beneficiary of financing sources. And usually the guide also specifies the period, the maximum period for implementing the project, of course, from their point of view. And usually the projects that also involve construction works have maximum implementation periods of 3 years, those with no construction works of 2 years. Now, Aderevest doesn't pressure the applicants in what concerns the periods, but other agencies, in particular AFIR, the agency for the financing of rural investments, I will show you their site in a moment, they usually pressure the applicants of planning the implementation process for 3 years whenever construction works are also involved, because they know from experience that it takes usually more than 2 years when you also have construction works, but at least 2 years. So this is why I insisted of planning the implementation process for at least 2 years. Okay, coming back to the guide. So of course you need to read it. My suggestion is to also use the tools available to us, such as ChatGPT. Let me show you how. First, I think I should download the guide, but I probably have it on my computer. Let me just check. Well, I have for sure other programs from other events that I also want to present to you. This is it. Okay, so I have the guide here. You should read it, of course. This is what you do when you really prepare a project. You read it line by line, but for the purpose of our project, if you don't want to read the entire guide, at least not from the beginning, go to ChatGPT and ask it to summarize. What I would do would be to upload the guide. There. And ask it to summarize it. Who are the eligible applicants? What are the eligible? And it should work quite well. You can also ask it questions. Of course, you should have your investment budget, and you could ask specific questions whether different parts of the budget are available or not. The mistake that I made is that in this panel I have a lot of discussions with ChatGPT, and it takes longer if this is the case. If you start a new discussion, it shouldn't take that long. I will leave it and come back to it in a moment. But my point is that you can use this as an instrument to at least have a make a quick idea about the content of the guide. So I will upload several guides from other events. This is one of 75,000 euros. There is another one that you will not find on their site for the time being, but I'm almost certain that they will open a call for proposals in a few months, and I will upload on our platform the guide from 2024. It's expected that they would not make important changes, so you can use it as a reference. I will upload a guide that targets the financing of companies that are into production, and you will see that there you can get within that program you can get subsidies of up to 200,000 euros, and another one for companies that offer services. There, the maximum value of the subsidies would go to 120,000. And there's another program for larger companies that goes up to 4 million euros. So from the beginning, I want to tell you that you will probably not meet all the conditions within these guides. So if you were to start a company right now, as we are imagining within our feasibility studies, you would probably, depending also on the placement of the investment, if you look within the guides with in detail, you will probably get to the conclusion that you will not be entirely eligible. But no matter, this is not the point. I just want to give you the chance of becoming familiar with the European funds, with the process of applying. So even if you are not fully eligible, I want you to choose the program that is the closest to whatever you are preparing in your project, and to imagine that you obtain the funds within that program. Again, even if you are not fully eligible. But I want to see that you have studied the program, that you know what the parts that make you ineligible are, and from that point on, from my point of view, it's okay. For sure, you have heard about Startup Nation. They plan to open another call for proposals within the Startup Nation program this year, and we will also be involved, because this year they want the companies that are applying to obtain subsidies, they want them to attend classes in the field of entrepreneurship before applying for subsidies. And this means that in a first stage, they need, at a national level, they need to organize classes, as I said, in the field of entrepreneurship. And we, as a university, we have been selected as a supplier for such services to organize classes, which means that in the following months, people, companies that will want to apply for subsidies within the Startup Nation program will come to us for specific classes. By the way, you as well, you can attend the classes if you want to, because the certifications would be recognized at national level. Of course, you are not forced to also apply for subsidies. If you only want to do the classes, you will be able to attend without applying later on. I will let you know, because I am involved in the program. And I will also, of course, put the link for the guide for the Startup Nation program on our platform. And the last thing that I want to show you, for the rural areas, if you type AFIR, Agenția de Finanțare a Investițiilor Rurale, you will be able to reach their site. It's an agency similar to ADREVEST, but if ADREVEST with the regional program mostly target the urban areas, not only but mostly, AFIR targets the rural areas. And for those of you that plan investments in particular in rural areas, but in particular in agriculture, you will find possible financing sources here. If you go here in the section for financing, you will find several programs. As you can see, for instance, here for agricultural exploitations, whether it's plant or animal farms. So I'm going to put the link on our platform, and I'm leaving it up to you, depending on the type of your investments, to read the guides, or again to use ChatGPT. Okay, maybe no, not working for the time being, but it will work, and it will be of a lot of help. Okay, here's a summary. Well, at some point it will work. So, of course, there's much to be said. We can debate on the subject of the financing sources a lot. There are always other possibilities. There are crowdfunding platforms. Uh, we have used them in the past, but they aren't that popular in Romania. They don't work that well in Romania. Maybe in the United States, they have a different cultures, and sometimes it can work. It's easy to check them out if you just type in Google crowdfunding. You will find many crowdfunding platforms, and on them you will find hundreds, if not thousands, of business ideas that require financing from the public. Basically, in most cases, startups that need some amount of financing, and they demand to the general public to have small contributions. Usually, they offer something in return. So you can check them out. You can find, as I showed you, many such platforms. Okay, finally, ChatGPT has produced some sort of summary. Uh, okay, in Romanian, of course, it can do it in English, obviously. So you can see that it does it well. It finds the main eligibility criteria, the value of the financing. You can see that it's what you have found. We found it together in the applicant's guide. Eligible expenses, mostly equipment, other information. You have to create at least one job, full-time job. Of course, that's important in practice. And you can ask for many other details. So use it. Okay. So from my point of view, this should be enough concerning the financing sources. Please make sure that you have at least those four: equity, bank loan, a financial leasing contract, and subsidies. I want you to have contact with all of these four. And also, when we do the financial forecasting, I want you to be able to learn how to forecast the payments and how to register them into accounting. So, this is it from me. Now, I hope that we can debate your investment budget for the time remaining, and maybe even talk about the possible financing sources. Can we take turns, maybe share your screens and talk about your investment budgets? Let's see from my list in alphabetical order. Andrei Ciubotaru, are you there? In 2 minutes, okay. Then let's see. Bogdan Barbat.
Yes, I'm here, but this is the first time that I entered. So yeah, I was with you today. I speak with my colleagues. I have an idea. I sketched something.
Okay, let's debate it a bit if you're here now. What's the
Yes.
idea? What's the
Yeah.
basic idea of investment?
My business idea is to open an unmanned car wash facility.
Okay, fine. Uh, this would happen where? In Timișoara?
Yes, in Timișoara.
Great. So immediately I would imagine you buying the land.
Yes.
So the land would be part of the investment. Of course, you would need a small project because you would need a concrete platform. You would need to bring the utilities, water and electric energy in particular. You would need to buy the equipment and make sure that you have in view sufficient equipment so that you get to an investment, as I was saying, of at least about 200,000 euros. I
Yes.
want it to be a little bit larger. So maybe, who knows, maybe with the land, with the concrete platform, and with the utilities, maybe with 4 or 5 units, for
Stations,
washing units, 4 or 5, you could get there. For the financing part, imagine financing it through the regional program that I was talking about, the program for services. I will upload the guide on the platform, and you will see that you can get up to 120,000 euros through that program. You will see that the land will not be eligible, but you would be able to use the financing to finance the construction works, such as the concrete platform and the utilities, the connections to the utilities, and the equipment.
and the equipment.
So you will have ineligible expenses, the land,
Mm-hmm.
and eligible expenses, the equipment and the construction works. And let's say that the eligible expenses would get to maybe 150,000. Of those 150,000, maybe you could cover up to 120,000 from the subsidies, and the rest you will cover them from equity or a bank loan.
Or bank loan. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so make sure that you prepare the operating cycle. We've done that last time.
Yes.
Check it out,
Yeah.
and then develop the investment
I
budget.
already started to put everything together to make a structure, and yeah, and for the next time, I hope I have everything, yeah, on an
Yes,
Excel to
please,
check, to double check it.
please do not only Excel, because I want to establish with you as a deadline for the following week to upload the feasibility study with the operating cycle and with the investment budget and the financing sources. So this is why I want to debate with you today your budgets, because for the following week I want you to
Yeah.
finish
Okay.
everything concerning the budget, because we need to go on with other subjects.
Okay.
So
Okay.
okay, now I'm coming back to Andrei Ciubotaru,
Thank
maybe.
you.
Yes. What should I do? Do I send the document
Yes.
to you or?
Just share the screen if you
Oh, okay.
if you have a simulation at least of the investment budgets. Just share the screen.
Okay, so I'll share actually
Share the entire screen. You have the arrow.
Yeah, no, I also
below.
I have anything open. Okay.
Okay, we can see it.
Okay, so okay. Okay,
You
so
have here the operating cycle, right?
yeah, basically I also have the description and blah blah blah, everything, and I jump to operating cycle.
Go
Okay,
to the budget.
So actually, from last time, in order to decrease actually the costs and maximize the profits, at the end I changed a little bit the model. So last time I said that I will basically offer the services and no product at all. It will be just the services. But after seeing the costs, it's not really possible to do like this. So this business would be basically selling the drone stations, kits, and also subscription to the software they need to use this product.
I'm gonna just stop you for a second,
Yeah.
just to make sure that I understand it correctly. So you're not buying drones anymore and offering
No,
services.
I'm buying.
Okay, but not offering services with them, but you are doing commerce. You're buying and you are selling them to the
So
customers.
so they have to buy the kit because I cannot offer it as a service. So they have to buy the kit, the customized kit that adding all the cameras and so on. In order to operate, once they buy it, in order to operate, they need the software subscription to be able to use the data, and because otherwise it operates by itself. And also, 1 second, because I think it's written here. So it's this. Also, they have another thing that I'm selling is the upgrades. Once in a while, there will be new versions available for the hardware. So they can also buy upgrades, and also I can also offer maintenance services. So basically, they choose.
So
what they
this
want.
means that from what you are saying, I understand that you will be generating revenues from 3 different areas.
Yeah.
Probably the main one would be the selling of the drones, the hardware.
No, actually, the main one will be. I'm thinking of it will be the software
Software license.
subscription and the maintenance services.
Okay, fine. But the point is that you have these 3 different types of revenue, right?
Yeah. But for hardware, I actually cannot add too much margin to the hardware because it's expensive anyway. But
Okay.
the idea is that they need this, and after this, they will need the upgrades once in a while, and also repairs, maintenance, and so on. They also need the services. I have to think exactly how to build the offering packages, but for now, this is what I can sell to them. It's like
Okay, I understand.
things that I can.
One observation concerning the operating cycle. Please develop it a little more. I mean, the bullets are fine, but maybe apart from the bullets, you can describe which
I thought
operation
it's
a
too
little bit.
much. I thought it's too much already. Oh, okay.
No, I made a simulation with you at some point, and you have seen that I generated it in ChatGPT. I used ChatGPT. I generated the operating cycle of maybe 15 pages. Of course, you have to adjust it, but using ChatGPT, and use it, of course, by all means, why not? You can introduce their details. Just make sure that it's what you want, because ChatGPT, of course, sometimes gives you options.
No. It's I got to the point that I want, but I didn't know I need to add more.
Yes, develop it more, because the person, just so that I this is an opportunity to explain it to the other colleagues as well. This operating cycle has many purposes. Of course, one of them is to establish the requirements for the investment. But we will come back to it when we need to do the financial forecasting. How do we know what we sell? What are we consuming? And so on. You will see. And for the person that evaluates the feasibility study, I mean, me, as I was telling you, in practice, I'm sometimes in the position of elaborating the study. Sometimes I work in an agency and I analyze feasibility studies made by others. When I analyze the budget in a feasibility study, I start with the operating cycle, because the main thing, the first thing that I have to establish within the budget is answer the question: is every type, every item from the budget, is it required by the operating cycle, by the business? So this is why I need to read and analyze the cycle. I need to have it in detail to establish whether each component of the budget is necessary or not, because sometimes I find in the budget things that are not required. You don't need to have them to for the operating cycle that you are proposing. And those items I'm not going to finance. So it's important to be clear about the operating cycle.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. Okay,
For
so it's
instance,
from,
I have had situations in which, I don't know, imagine someone, a company, maybe with a software is your field. I remember that I had many projects with problems in that involved also software programs. I feel that many of them have problems because it's, to say it honestly, it's easier to steal, to fraud, when we talk about software. Because when you buy an existing equipment, you buy, I don't know, an excavator, a forklift, you can find them already on the market. So it's not much to be said about the prices. But when you want to buy a software made particular for you, personalized software, it's more difficult to establish the price. And I remember, for instance, a project that had, among other things, a software, a personalized software of about 800,000 euros. And after being done with it, after analysis of maybe 2 months, in which I demanded much more details about the technical specifications of the software, the functions, and everything, I asked, in the name of course, the agency, I asked for price offers from many other software companies. I ended up with a price of maybe 100,000, so much less. I had many such cases. So there are situations in which either some items are not necessary and I cannot finance them, either the prices put into the budget are too high and I can cut them, at least in part. So let's go to the budget. Land and construction. I don't like that. I don't like this for the following reason. I need to see the land on a separate position from the construction, because
they are. Where are you looking? One second.
Line number 1.
Okay. No. It's I just put them on categories. But if you look
Fine,
next on the next column, you'll see land and construction separate, actually.
Okay. If it's not the way I work, but if it's important for you to have them on categories.
No. It's there are tons of. For example, I put this because I will show you. So normally it should be like this without that, but I put that because, for example, you have here like this, and then similar items. So for me, let's say it's useful.
Okay. If it's helpful to you, okay.
Let's just hide it right now. It's no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see. Land. So, but I don't want to start with the land. I want to look at the construction. So the construction means office and warehouse of 200 square meters.
I thought more like let's say a small warehouse that you just separate with a wall.
So maybe it would be
look, one here. I have something here. So let's see. Let's assume this is the land. It's approximately actually no. The land is 700 in this picture. The building is almost 300 because well, it didn't split correctly, but anyway. And this should be the, let's say, the
warehouse, and the other part.
It's where so no, this will be the production area in this building. The production area meaning the workbenches.
Assembling. Because production.
Assembling. And here is the part where, let's say, this is the office where also the developer is, because it was supposed to be 2 developers, but I changed because the budget is high.
Okay, and the construction will probably be standard.
Sandwich.
I get it.
Warehouse.
Okay, let's go back to the budget.
Oh, wait.
So going back to the budget, you have 200 square meters. You said 250. Now wait a second. 250 euros per square meter. Now you say separately electrical installation, meaning probably the electrical installations from within the building. No.
I assume that I have the building, as I said over there, because of so the areas in Romania with the most wind farms are southeast and northeast of Romania. It's the most of them. So I said somewhere near, let's say outside Focșani, that area would be perfect because also it's well connected to both in both directions. So I said, okay, let's say a sandwich construction with some would cost this much, and also because I'm outside, okay, I'm not like in the middle of nowhere. but still I need to, well, the cables probably, the electrical installation won't be in front of
I understand.
of this, and probably I'll need a couple of let's say 2-3 pillars to get the electricity, and it's about
But then there is no transformer there. If there were a transformer, the price would be much higher.
No, I cut the cost. 1 second. Today I work to cut the cost.
Cable is very close, a few meters away.
No, I cut the cost. Initially I had like many more stations and batteries and employees, and definitely, probably, most likely I would need a transformer, because a normal cable would just melt, considering the amount of energy consumed. So
now please allow me to go position by position.
Yeah.
So first of all, within the construction, the second position, I want to make sure that you imagine there the entire construction, meaning starting from the foundation to anything, to the finished construction, with the electrical installations inside, with water installations where the key is. You did. If you did, 250,000 euros, 250 euros is not enough. Usually such a construction reaches maybe 650, 700 euros.
Depends, because
it does depend.
Recently, actually, I got a quote for kind of a house, 200 square meter house built from sandwich panels, and something similar to an A-frame, and it's 45,000 euros, including the foundation.
And what's the surface?
Almost 200. So it's doable. It depends who constructs it. So it can be way more, or
I tend to not believe it, because again, I have worked in this field for more than 20 years. To do a production hall and with the office space, which requires more detail.
Okay, so
I would not bet
it's not
of
a
doing
house.
it for.
It's a production. Sorry? It's not a house, it's a production area. Okay, so yeah, the cost probably.
No, the house usually is much higher. În română, casa prezintă finisaje mai specializate. Adică, de exemplu, o hală de producție de obicei are șapă pe jos și gata. Casa are parchet, are zugrăveli mai de lux. De obicei, din motivul ăsta, nu că de obicei, garantat, prețul pentru bătatul la o casă e mai ridicat și ajunge la o casă liniștită acum la 900, poate să ajungă la mult mai mult. O hală de producție, ca regulă, sub 650 și e puțin 650 euro pe metru pătrat, nu prea are cum să ajungă. Adică dacă vă uitați pe net, poate găsiți site-uri de la firme care fac construcții metalice și poate aruncă prețuri de tip 250. Dar dacă vă uitați, vedeți că nu conțin fundația, că nu conțin decât structura din stâlpi și grinzi și panouri, nu conțin șapă, nu conțin salat și așa mai departe. Deci sub 650 îmi pare rău, dar n-are cum să fie. Adică ceva e în regulă acolo.
Punem 650, nu problem.
Vă spun și
facem update acum.
Da, adică vă pot spune că de acum câțiva ani, de exemplu, când lucram la ADR, chiar am făcut intenționat un studiu pentru a putea fundamenta. Am făcut un studiu discutând cu firmele din regiune pentru a putea cumva contraverifica bugetele celor care depuneau oferte. Sub 650 de euro de atunci, deja de acum ceva vreme, n-am mai găsit nimic. Așa că cumva oficial ADR Vest ia în calcul prețuri din zona asta. Nu vrea să plătească mult mai mult, dar e greu, mai ales că noi am pus prețul cu tot, cu TVA, e puțin și 650. Instalația electrică acolo, practic ne gândim la, am zis noi, la branșament, nu la instalația interioară, la fel branșament la apă și canalizare 3000, ok, de acord, fibră optică. Acum, ce n-are ce să caute acolo sunt șasele, utilitățile. Acolo, după cât înțeleg eu, sunt cheltuieli anuale. Nu, alea sunt cheltuieli curente, le vom estima în exploatare. Vă rog să le ștergeți.
Aici, practic, nu pun nicio cheltuială curentă.
Nu. Astea nu sunt investiții, vor fi cheltuieli curente pe care în fiecare an le înregistrăm.
Și nici salariile?
Nu, categoric nu. Astea nu
Deci
sunt
nici așa.
investiții. Sunt cheltuieli curente, le vom estima în exploatare.
De asta îmi zbura mie bugetul. Stați așa, că acum se rezolvă. Imediat ajungem la un buget normal. Ia-ți văd, cred că asta e tot. Sper că asta e tot. Hai să-l punem și pe asta. Bun.
Haideți că le parcurgem împreună să vedem.
233, ok, altă treabă. Așa, mai facem aici. Unde rămăsesem? Pe aici.
La Office Desks, acolo avem, ok, calculatoare, desktop-uri presupun sau? Da? Desktop-uri sau ce? Birourile.
Doar birourile, da. Așa.
Ok. 3 unități. Observație care e interesantă în practică. Pe programele ADR-ului de care v-am vorbit, veți vedea că sunt eligibile utilaje, echipamente, inclusiv mobilier, deci inclusiv aceste Office Desk, dar din punct de vedere contabil sunt eligibile mijloacele fixe și nu sunt eligibile obiectele de inventar. Legea contabilității în România trasează o linie între ele la 500 de euro, la 2500 lei. Adică dacă aș cumpăra, habar n-am, un birou cu 2500, 2600, ar fi eligibil că el, contabil vorbind, ar fi mijloc fix. Dacă îl cumpăr cu 2400, pe un program al ADR-ului n-ar fi eligibil, că ar fi obiect de inventar. Motiv pentru care atunci când aș aplica, dacă, să zicem, prevăd să cumpăr masă cu scaun și cu dulap, dacă prevăd masă 1000 de lei, dulap 1500, scaun 500, dacă le prevăd în buget separat, sunt neeligibile. Dar ce pot să fac, și este legal, nu e ilegal, zic set mobilier. Și atunci, de când stabilesc specificațiile, zic set mobilier, conținând ce? Conținând masă, scaun, dulap cu anumite dimensiuni. Dar asta înseamnă că prevăd așa în proiect și mai departe, în implementare, când fac caietul de sarcini, în caietul de sarcini pun set mobilier. Nu pun masă, scaun, dulap, ci pun set mobilier compus din. Furnizorul, când îmi face ofertă pe set mobilier. Când semnez contractul, semnez pe set mobilier. Când îmi taie factura, îmi taie factura pe set mobilier. Automat e un cont în baza facturii, înregistrez set mobilier de 2500 lei ca mijloc fix, nu ca obiect de inventar. Deci, atenție la aspectul ăsta. În cazul acesta, dacă bași cumpăr doar masă și costă 400 de euro, mai bine cumpăr una cu 500 de euro ca să fie eligibilă.
Da. Am înțeles. Aha, ok. Bun,
la fel valabil pentru toate celelalte. Calculatoarele oricum sunt 1500, dar dacă erau laptopuri de 2000 de lei, erau neeligibile, că erau obiect de inventar. Nu e cazul. Așa, monitoarele însă e cazul. Monitoarele, dacă sunt doar 300 de euro, e ok, le punem în buget, dar le tratăm ca și cheltuieli neeligibile și le suportăm din surse proprii.
Da, și asta merge împreună cu computerele, deci e ok. Adică stații de lucru.
Poate zicem ceva de felul, nu știu, sistem de calcul.
Da, exact.
Care conține monitoare, scoatem monitoarele separat, le lăsăm doar sistem de calcul în loc de computere și introducem în sistemul ăla și monitoarele. Dacă le punem separat cum sunt acum, le putem, dar sunt neeligibile, le suportăm din surse proprii.
Okay.
Mai departe sunt mărunțișuri, router, sigur că da, ok. 500 de euro ar fi și ele eligibile probabil pe programele pe care vi le-am prezentat. Office, kitchen setup, coffee machine și
la fel, aici trebuiască să pun, cum se cheamă, deci 13 și cu 14 pot să le pun și pe ele ca împreună ca mobilier pentru zona de asamblare, ceva de genul. Ca să nu le pun
sau
separat.
pot să rămână și așa cum sunt, dar atunci le tratăm ca obiect de inventar separat și le tratăm ca neeligibile, nu ar fi o problemă. Ar fi pentru varietate, ne-am mai exersa.
Aici eram curios.
Aici la used
de mașină nouă, ăsta bănuiesc că nu e eligibil, nu?
Orice nu e nou nu e eligibil. Oricum între noi fie vorba, mașinile pe cele mai multe programe nu sunt eligibile, dar și acolo unde sunt, sau indiferent că sunt mașini sau alte echipamente, second hand nu sunt eligibile. Și în regulă, lăsați-o așa și o treceți la cheltuieli neeligibile. E în regulă.
Okay.
Nici o problemă, e normal să avem și din acelea. Toolkits. Aici sunt în regulă, pot rămâne. Acolo nu știu ce înseamnă.
Bine, aici de fapt stați că e doar una, că am mai tăiat din personal.
Ok.
Dar aici practic e ceea ce am nevoie ca să construiesc. Practic asta e drona, iar cu asta o customizez. Asta vin montate pe dronă, chestiile respective.
Bun, dar numai puțin vă opresc.
Da.
Dronele a rămas acum că veți face comerț cu ele, că cumpărați și revindeți. Mă rog, cumpărați, asamblați și vindeți.
Le cumpăr, după care le upgradez, le customizez cu camerele de mai jos și cu niște chestii în plus.
Bun, am înțeles ideea. Da, atunci
și după aia le dau mai departe. Dar practic nu voi adăuga la ele cine știe ce adaug sau ceva de genul ăsta.
Ok, dar vă opresc, am înțeles. De ce ar căuta 2 drone în bugetul nostru de investiții? Dumneavoastră pe parcursul fiecărui an veți cumpăra multe și veți vinde.
Bine, da, practic cu ce trebuie să încep. De început.
Dumneavoastră astea 2 le veți vinde, nu le veți folosi în propria activitate operațională. Le veți vinde. Deci sunt mărfuri.
Ok, am înțeles.
Sunt mărfuri, le cumpărați și le revindeți, nu sunt investiții.
Da, am înțeles că eu le iau și le... Da, deci ele vin după asta, corect.
Cum pentru mine merle erau materie primă, le cumpăr și le procesez și vând sucul. Merle nu erau investiții, nici pentru noastră dronele nu sunt investiții, sunt marfă.
Da.
Chiar dacă sunt probleme mari. Deci alea dispar de aici și vor apărea, veți vedea, în forecasturile anuale. Vom previziona cheltuieli cu mărfuri. Nu le ștergeți, spuneți-le în altă parte, că veți avea nevoie de ele peste 3 săptămâni.
Mă uit până unde mă duc. Așa, stați să văd care mai vine. Bad recharging stations și... Nu, asta poate să rămână.
Nu o să puteți da cut, dacă îl selectați sărit, nu o să puteți da cut.
Nu, că nu vreau să le dau cut, vreau doar să le pun cu o altă culoare ca să știu eu ce cu ele. Să le pun, că o să le mut eu după aia. Așa, ca să nu le șterg. Bun. Pe atunci
sunt cheltuieli curente și le veți scoate de aici, le veți ține pentru cheltuielile de exploatare. Battery charging stations, alea mă gândesc că sunt tot ceva ce se instalează la clienți.
Nu. Astea rămân acolo pentru că sunt folosite inclusiv când faci teste și oricum trebuie să tot încarci. Și atunci astea sunt ca tool-urile necesare.
De acord, am înțeles. Spare parts, nu cred că e cazul. Cred că
nici asta pentru că le-am scos și pe celălalt bun. Deci am scos că sunt spare parts care practic o să le iau după aia, odată cu mentenanța și cu astea. Deci...
Da. Tot cheltuieli curente vor genera și ele. Development software and licenses. Aici, cum se întâmplă? Veți face dumneavoastră softul?
Se customizează și se mai adaugă niște moduli. Dar el practic există deja.
Și ca să-l folosiți e nevoie, adică trebuie să plătiți, bănuiesc ceva sau cum e regimul? Trebuie să plătiți ca să-l puteți folosi.
Da, el este practic ăștia furnizorii de droni îți oferă o platformă deja pe care tu ai să lucrezi și îți adaugi ce module vrei, adică ce vrei să
dumneavoastră
customizezi.
Dumneavoastră ca vânzător e nevoie să plătiți ceva pentru a avea acces la platforma asta?
Da, pentru că eu pe bază practic cum funcționează, eu iau platforma, ei îmi dau acces la platformă, eu customizez ce vreau, vând clienților serviciul respectiv și lor trebuie să le plătesc pentru fiecare client care l-am eu, trebuie să le dau lor și lor partea.
Atunci și în cazul ăsta ce le plătiți
licensing mai departe, cum ar veni așa.
Deci ce le veți plăti lor va fi și în acest caz o cheltuială curentă, n-avem de ce să o punem în investiție.
Da.
Iar oamenii care lucrează pentru a adapta softul la nevoile eventuale ale clienților, aia o să fie salariile cu ei, o să fie salarii cheltuieli.
Da, i-am scos deja, că de asta aveam bugetul foarte mare. Și acum dacă voi scădea toate astea, dar nu le scad acum așa, stați să văd cam cu tare.
După câte văd 46.000,
gata, mă duc.
E prea puțin, ar mai trebui să mai și puneți ceva.
Să mai pun acum, nu? Stați, că cred că și ăsta 10.000 se duce, deci e și mai puțin.
Nu, cei 10.000 rămân, doar că nu-i finanțăm din subvenție, dar rămân în buget.
Da, corect. Așa, deci trebuie să mai pun. Rezolve, nu e problemă.
Nu neapărat, acum nu-i mult să fie 200. Să fie aproximat.
Facem clădirea mai
da, știți, numai o clipă. Dacă am țărit cam repede peste teren. Terenul ăla cu 10 euro, ați spus că nu-i bași în the middle of nowhere, dar tot ieftin este. Adică
dacă ești în afară, găsești. Adică eu am mai găsit prin alte zone și la 5, chiar surprinzător încă să mai găsești. Am pus un preț generic, 10.
Care e scos din circuitul agricol. Adică, de exemplu, în zona Timișoarei, teren scos din circuit și să fie cât de cât teren aproape sub 40 de euro. Greu. De obicei
Asta
mult
cu
mai
scos
mult.
din circuit s-ar putea, adică aveți dreptate.
Dacă e
Ce
agricol,
știam
n-aveți
eu,
ce
nu,
face, că puteți construi pe el.
dar nu era scos din circuitul agricol, după aia era pășuni și
ba,
nu știu ce.
Eu presupun că era, adică unul care e în circuitul agricol, în general, e undeva în medie cam €1 metru pătrat. Afară de cazul că
nu știu, au început să dispară și astea. Deci la €1.
Au început să dispară că, din păcate, s-a vândut tot către ce mai frecvent firme străine.
Am rămas surprins să văd până și tot felul de terenuri dubioase.
Prețuri mai mari decât în SUA sau în țările
Exact. Deci nu cred că mai sunt la €1 acum, trebuie să spun.
Nu mai prea sunt, cam pe acolo,
dacă e scos, să zic că e scos, probabil eu leac mai mult.
Deci eu zic că, din nou, nu știu câte sunt prețurile acolo. Aici nu prea ați găsi sub 30-40, probabil mai mult. Dar nu știu câte sunt prețurile acolo în regiune, vedeți dumneavoastră.
Să punem un generic așa, 30. Ia să vedem. Și acum nu mai bine. Deci ne apropiem repede de 200. Suntem ok. Da.
Bun, eu știu, nu mai văd acolo cu siguranță că pe terenul ăla e nevoie de o împrejmuire, un gard, că nu poate să fie construcția fără un gard.
Ia stați să scriu că n-am intrat în detalii din astea, ia să punem.
Cum am pus eu o parcare, clar că aveți nevoie.
Eu am prevăzut parcarea e asta cu gri de aici, dar
buget nou văd, de aia zic că ar fi logic să aveți o parcare, o platformă în jur.
Legate de așa. Așa, bun. Ok. Bun, atunci fac toată treaba asta și după aia pot să fac
surse de finanțare după ce aveți bugetul.
Da.
Bun, hai să vedem dacă mai are cineva buget pe care ne-l poate prezenta. Da, Ramona Popescu, vă rog.
Bună seara, Am făcut ceva, dar cred că am ieșit puțin peste ceea ce eu doream.
Se poate să ne proiectați?
Da, acum, imediat. Se vede oare?
Da, se vede ecranul, da.
Bun, să încep puțin prin ce... Acum am scris puțin despre ce vreau să fac, ideea de afacere. Am încercat
să ne uităm direct pe buget, că partea asta mă gândesc că am tot discutat, o să vedem bugetul.
Ok, bun, trebuie să mergem la buget. Stați că am două bugete aici, mai multe chestii încercate. Așa. Păi da, cam aici ar fi. Cred că se vede, da?
Nu vedem bugetul. Cred că ați proiectat fereastra cu platforma și poate ar fi bine să proiectați întregul ecran, că nu vedem decât platforma.
O să încerc din nou, 2 secunde.
Când dați share, dați întregul ecran. Ok, acum vedem ecranul, da, și vedem bugetul.
Ok. Deci, land, am undeva la 5.000 de metri pătrați. M-am gândit undeva la 20 de euro metru pătrat, având în vedere că este în zona Râul de Mori. Cam acolo am estimat să fie.
Da, sigur că nu știu câte sunt prețurile acolo, dar speranța e că dați un search, sigur o să găsiți niște variante pe platformele de imobiliare.
Da, acum dacă e mai aproape un pic de sat, am dat un pic de search, dacă e mai aproape un pic de localități, un pic mai scump, dacă mergi un pic mai departe, cam acolo.
Clar trebuie să fie aproape, că trebuie, cum spuneam și cu colegul, să fie scos din circuitul agricol și să aveți acces la niște utilități. Că dacă e teren agricol, înseamnă încă 2 ani petrecuți pentru a scoate din circuit, să faceți puz, costă. Deci să aveți în vedere un teren care e scos de din circuitul agricol și are destinație de servicii la dumneavoastră, ar fi vorba de cazare.
Păi, da, oricum care erau mai departe veneau undeva la 10, deci mă gândesc că alea sunt pe mai departe, undeva la 10 euro am văzut chiar și de-aia, am făcut estimativ, așa, aproximativ, m-am gândit să fie un pic, să nu fie nici prea departe, nici prea...
Da, numai asta să vă uitați esențialul, să fie nu teren agricol, ci să fie scos din circuit. Dacă ați găsit sau că credeți că cu 20 puteți lua teren scos din circuitul agricol, eu vă cred, nu mai verific.
Ok.
Bun. Autorizație de construire, acolo 2000 ăla pare cam rotund. L-ați calculat ca procent din valoarea construcțiilor? Că pare prea rotund.
Nu, pentru că în principiu construcțiile nu este construcție propriu-zisă, adică construcțiile se cumpără, ceea ce înseamnă bungalourile astea vin direct montate, adică trebuie făcută doar că mă scap acum.
Adică întrebarea este pentru ce din ceea ce aveți aici veți avea nevoie de autorizație de construire? Că pentru acele elemente veți plăti automat taxă. Hai să vedem, aceste bungalouri, ele se montează pe o fundație, presupun, nu?
Păi da, doar pe fundație, dar adică sunt care trebuie fundație sau sunt care se pot instala și pe piloni.
Dumneavoastră, de care vi le-ați imaginat? Ca să ne dăm seama dacă au nevoie de acces sau nu.
Păi eu m-am gândit la cele cu fundație, dar dacă stau să mă gândesc bine și să reducem costuri, ar putea fi și cele de pe piloni. Că sunt care n-au nevoie de fundație. Da.
Nu, da, dumneavoastră știți mai bine că nu-mi imaginez exact cum vor fi, adică nu sunt convins că n-au nevoie de AC. Ele bănuiesc că structurile sunt din lemn și
Da.
ei le fac producătorii la hală și aduc și le montează, da? Asta în sine nu face automat, nu elimină nevoia pentru AC. Dacă sunt structuri mai complexe care sunt definitive acolo, eu îmi imaginez că suprafața, spuneți 40 de metri la cabană și la bungalouri, ziceți unități, dar nu știu ce suprafață ar avea una.
Păi e undeva la 50 de metri pătrați, nu mai mari.
Da. Nu știu, eu m-aș imagina că totuși au nevoie de autorizație de construire. Deci eventual poate asta vă mai uitați dumneavoastră. Okay. Mai departe, porturile evident că nu.
Da.
Service area, aici clar trebuie să fie ceva construit cu autorizație de construire. Deci așa. Partea asta nu. Asta service area de la 7 e clar că e o construcție. Acolo clar aveți nevoie de autorizație de construire. Și dining area la fel, nu bănesc că la 8
o terasă acoperită cu barbecue și bucătărie.
Deci aici la 8 v-ați imaginat o terasă acoperită, însemnând ce? O platformă din beton și cu niște stâlpi și un acoperiș.
Exact.
Ok, cu observația că mi se pare foarte puțin 80 de euro pentru asta. Eu zic că ar trebui să fie mai mult pe metru pătrat. Nu știu cât, dar 80. Eu zic că doar platforma goală ar fi 80, cu structura superioară. Habar n-am, poate măcar vreo 200, nu știu sigur, dar poate. Apoi, activities area, aici e ce? Un curte, e pământ liber sau ce înseamnă?
Da, deci teren de joacă în aer liber. Teren de joacă,
da. Aici nu-mi place exprimarea asta, zice că nu e ok să ne exprimăm așa pentru că sunt mai multe componente. Adică aș vrea să văd în buget ceea ce cumpărăm. Nu cumpărăm zona, probabil cumpărăm porți de fotbal, cumpărăm tot felul de minuni și la fel le înregistrăm în contabilitate, știți? Deci aș vrea să le văd după natura lor, ce sunt. Nu e o zonă, ci sunt,
în primul rând eu mă gândeam la un playground, adică teren de joacă pentru copii. Cred că am greșit aici, da.
Da, repet, faceți același lucru, nu cumpărați terenul. Terenul fizic există, dumneavoastră cumpărați porți de fotbal, cumpărați tot felul. Deci am nevoie să văd componentele pe care le cumpărați.
Ok.
Așa că mai departe, în funcție de asta, le înregistrăm în contabilitate, le amortizăm sau nu, vedem dacă sunt eligibile sau nu pe anumite programe.
Ok, da, o să caut.
Swimming pool, piscină, aici fără îndoială că o construiți, deci o lucrare de construcții. Fencing și gate, același lucru, de acord, de construcție. Parking area, iarăși parcare construită, da. Branșamente la utilități, le aveți mai departe, da. Mergând până la furniture și furnishing for glampings, ok, ar fi mijloace fixe, kitchen equipment, echipamente de bucătărie. Okay,
da, pentru bungalouri și pentru zona de bucătărie. Așa.
Da. Nu fi puțin 8.000, nu știu.
Acum, se presupune că mobilierul deja este pentru că a fost încadrat în furniture and furnishing.
Da, echipamentele de bucătărie, adică eu mă raportez la ce ar avea un restaurant. Știu că nu aveți restaurant acolo, dar aveți pe de altă parte mai mulți oameni.
Da, eu mă gândeam ce înseamnă veselă, adică ce trebuie pentru bucătărie.
Atunci e altceva. Deci puneți pe de o parte, eu mă gândeam că poate aveți, eu știu, poate cuptoare, poate frigidere. Puneți-le separat, că vesela, de exemplu, dacă vorbim acum despre de finanțare, vesela mai mult ca sigur că n-ar fi eligibile, pe când echipamente de bucătărie pe care le-ar avea, de exemplu, un restaurant care costă 1000 de euro ar fi mijloace fixe și ar fi eligibile. Deci stabiliți detaliat ce echipamente puneți, că e important și pentru finanțare și pentru mai departe proiecțiile financiare.
Ok.
Linen and towels. Ok, astea clar nu vor fi eligibile, sunt, eu știu, materiale consumabile, nici obiect de inventar cel mult. Dar lăsați-le în buget, numai să aveți în vedere că nu vor fi eligibile pentru finanțare.
Ok.
Nerambursabile mă refer, deci va trebui din surse proprii. Maintenance tools and equipment. Aceeași poveste aici, ar trebui detaliate, nu putem arunca la
da, deci de exemplu, da, eu mă gândeam de exemplu la o mașină de tuns iarbă.
Puneți-le separat.
Să fie separat, ok.
Da. Computer and office equipment. Dacă sunt două calculatoare, că nu știu ce înseamnă office equipment, dacă sunt două calculatoare, ok, numai atunci să zicem computer. Office furniture, să zicem unități.
Unul singur, că da, mă
Da,
gândeam.
nu știu, ok, adică imaginați-vă niște set de mobilier conținând probabil masă, scaun, dulap, cum ziceam eu. Dacă asta este, în regulă.
Da, pentru birouri care să fie la check-in și așa mai departe.
Da, ok. Pare atunci cam puțin 600 pentru check-in de un pool din de obicei mai mult, dar mă rog.
Mai mergem la Ikea, nu știu.
Software, dacă vă gândiți la ce? La licență tip Office sau Windows sau la un software special pentru gestiunea clienților?
Da, nu, mă gândesc la un software special pentru a face rezervări, pentru...
Am înțeles. Eu în locul dumneavoastră m-aș gândi atunci la o aplicație web, adică un site pe care se poate face rezervări și care automat ar ajunge la mai mult, ar ajunge la vreo câteva mii de euro. Adică și într-o formă simplă în care pot să fac rezervări online și eventual plăți, eu zic că măcar la vreo 3-4 mii de euro ar ajunge. Sigur că poate fi și mult mai mult. Dar cred că așa ar fi logic, nu să se facă și rezervări online și mai bine vă și promovați. Apoi pool maintenance equipment, iar să vedem ce e echipamentul ăla.
Păi ce trebuie pentru...
Detaliați, aceeași observație, detaliați-l. Puneți-le pe componente. Dirigenție de șantier în regulă, numai să vedem conform graficului pe câte luni se întind lucrările de construcții. Și asta e, calculăm total construcții montaj ca să putem ca mai departe la acel total să aplicăm taxele ISC și taxa pentru AC. Și acum din ce avem la dumneavoastră, eventual haideți să marcăm împreună ce înseamnă construcții. Dacă vă rog puteți să rulați înapoi sus.
Da.
Deci ce ar fi construcție? Bungalourile, eu mi le-aș imagina ca și construcție, dumneavoastră decideți. Eu cred că ele vor intra ca și construcții permanente. Deci ele, mai departe, 7 și cu 8, service area și dining area, am zis că sunt construcții separate, deci sunt lucrări de construcții, marcați-le și pe ele ca făcând parte din construcții montaj. Nu, glamping tents nu. Alea le cumpărați și le montați, clar nu.
Okay.
Dar bungalourile plus service area, care am convenit că e o construcție separată, plus dining area, așa, astea sunt construcții, piscina și gardul și parking area sunt construcții și mai departe mergând jos utilitățile. Atât, că waste management system nu cred că îi construiți acolo ceva, deci până la utilități, până la 13, atât. Și mai jos, dacă mergem, cred că nu mai avem altceva de construcții. Nu.
Așa, dacă nu sunt construcții.
Nu, sigur că mobilier nu. Așa, nu mai avem altceva. Acum, toate acestea, adunați-le jos într-o poziție, cum am făcut și eu, ați văzut că am pus undeva în simularea mea construcții-montaj. Deci undeva sub total scrieți construcții-montaj sau din care construcții-montaj. Și acum hai să calculăm pe coloana F, să facem suma a tot ceea ce aveți acolo, a ceea ce ați marcat drept construcții. Nu cred că formula... Nu, vedeți că mi se pare că scrieți în celula în F6, nu e bine. Dați un acolo vreți să faceți. Nu, dați un escape, să ieșiți din formula lui F6, dați un escape. Și acum mergeți înapoi jos, egal. Și acum mergeți, egal. Nu cred că aveți nevoie de sumă și mergeți acum sus. Și le luăm pe rând câte una, că nu sunt multe. Așa, plus. Nu trebuie să coborâți. Plus și selectați-le doar pe celelalte. Click plus următoarea. Așa, și plus fiecare. Enter, fără ultimul plus ștergeți-l, că nu mai adunați nimic. Așa, Enter. Și avem valoarea construcțiilor. Și acum la ea, raportat la ea, calculăm taxa pentru AC. Dacă vă rog frumos mergeți sus la AC, la taxa pentru AC, sus în tabel, la poziția a 3-a. Aveți Construction Permit Tax. Mergeți, vă rog frumos, pe E, pe coloana E la E4 și aici îi punem formula. Egal 1% ori valoarea a ceea ce am calculat ca fiind construcție. 1%. Așa, ori. Și mergeți jos și înmulțim cu valoarea construcțiilor. Așa. Și gata, avem taxa pentru AC. Numai vedeți că valoarea la pe ultima coloană nu e calculată. Vedeți că a rămas 2000.
Okay.
Acolo. Să faceți peste tot egal. Nu, eu zic să faceți egal. Valoarea egal cu cantitate ori preț. Așa, ori preț și trageți formula peste tot, că logica asta o veți respecta la toate pozițiile. Așa, corect, și sus la pozițiile 1 și 2. Așa, bun. Și la fel veți calcula pentru taxele de jos de la ISC. 0,1% și 0,5% din C plus M. Puteți face dumneavoastră mai târziu, exact cum am făcut la taxa pentru AC.
Ok, perfect. Mulțumesc.
Sigur. Mai este cineva care care vrea să discutăm bugetul?
Eu nu am bugetul făcut, dar o să-l fac pe data viitoare.
Hai să dezbatem. Ce veți avea acolo? Că poate vă ajut măcar cu niște indicații.
Eu m-am gândit să fac o firmă de imprimare 3D și din asta de CNC. Deci ori imprimare, ori de amândouă, adică și imprimare și partea de CNC.
Dar ca tipologie, ce fel de obiecte vreți să imprimați?
Niște obiecte custom pe care le facem conform cerințelor clientului.
Dacă, de exemplu?
Din astea jucării de plastic, spre exemplu, sau niște părți, spre exemplu, se rupe ceva dintr-un dispozitiv, să-l facem customizabil prin 3D. Facem designul 3D, scanare 3D și după aia imprimare 3D.
Am înțeles. Aici două observații vă rog să le aveți în vedere. Pentru jucării, dacă ați face jucării 3D, nu știu, adică dacă sunt jucării mici, senzația mea este că să le faceți custom ar fi ineficient. Dacă faceți lucruri mari, cum ar fi, habar n-am, tobogan din material plastic, poate. Dar intuitiv, senzația mea este că ar fi greu să fiți competitivi făcând asta la comandă și 3D, când sigur că jucării din plastic ar fi făcute serie sau masă prin procese tradiționale. Deci ar fi un prim semn de întrebare dacă puteți avea prețuri competitive. Și oricum le-ați face, dar cu atât mai mult dacă le-ați face la comandă. Dacă faceți piese poate pentru alte companii, pentru poate utilaje de valoare mai mare, habar n-am, poate că acolo ar fi mai potrivit. Deci aveți în vedere aspectele astea. Iar la CNC ați face ce? Îmi vine în minte, de exemplu, un colaborator care face la CNC piese pentru alte firme, clienți pentru utilaje în industrie.
Da. Ceva de
Deci,
genul ăsta.
reținerea mea ar fi de eficiență, adică lucrând doar pe comenzi veți avea volume mici și veți avea automat multă atenție de acordat fiecarei comenzi. Deci să vedeți cum vă găsiți piața, adică ce faceți special, ce nu pot, că ei dacă ar cumpăra piesele de pe piață, logic ar fi să fie mai ieftine decât cele făcute la comandă dumneavoastră. Deci automat trebuie să vă găsiți.
Sau că nu se pot face. Sau că nu s-ar putea face piesele respective.
Exact, să le găsiți pe acelea ca și nișă care nu se pot face decât la comandă. Și atunci, astea fiind spuse, mi-aș imagina așa dumneavoastră, poate un teren, un mic atelier, că nu cred că va fi foarte mare, cu echipamentele respective și cu, oamenii, nu că ar fi oamenii par din investiție, dar niște oameni care le exploatează. Bun, și asta dacă s-ar fi în oraș, s-ar finanța binișor, cred că pe măsura de producție de la ADR, o să vă pun ghidul pe platformă.
Bine.
Bun, bine. Cred că n-a mai rămas nimeni, nu? Tot ați prezentat cu toții. Bun, eu sunt entuziast, îmi place ce am văzut la fiecare. Vă stabilesc, știu că vreți să scăpați, un minut. Vreau numai să vă arăt unde să încărcați și vă las după aceea în pace. Proiectez ecranul meu. Pe platforma. Unde e platforma? Aici, probabil că m-a scos deja. Da. Deci, pe platformă, vă adaug aici la surse de finanțare, vă adaug link-uri și ghiduri ca să le puteți consulta, cele pe care le-am discutat, și aici vă creez o secțiune de încărcare. O creez acum ca să știți ce aveți de făcut. Project, upload. Asta cred că e partea întâia, nu? Part 1. Așa, și vă stabilesc ca termen, așa cum am discutat, săptămâna viitoare, asta înseamnă 4 aprilie, ora 16, adică înainte de începerea întâlnirii noastre. Și atunci aveți de încărcat ce? Un singur fișier, documentul Word. Deci nu încărcați Excel, nu încărcați altceva, transferați din ce ați calculat în Excel, transferați în Word, în structura pe care v-am pus la dispoziție, pe care o aveți, ia să vedem. Aici, da? Deci aici aveți structura studiu de fezabilitate, vă rog frumos transferați în documentul acesta Word ciclul de exploatare, bugetul, grafice de implementare, grafice pentru credite și leasing-uri, să nu uitați să vi le creați, structura surselor de finanțare, informații despre ele și încărcați documentul Word aici, până data viitoare la ora 6. O să vă scriu aici, ca să nu mai pierd acum timpul să vă rețin, o să vă scriu câteva detalii. Bun. Asta ar fi din partea mea. Vă mulțumesc pentru răbdare. Ne vedem atunci săptămâna viitoare. Spor la lucru.
Mulțumim și noi.
Mulțumim, seara frumoasă.
La revedere.